For this tutorial, we're going to be making chains. With green stuff, it's really all about timing. It's really important if you want the green stuff to stick really well to a model, an existing model. You'll want to apply it right at the beginning, maybe about 5 minutes after you've mixed it, because that's the best sticking point. Also, because of timing, the best time to actually sculpt on the green stuff is maybe about 15 or 20 minutes after you've actually mixed it, so it's cured a little bit. Now, a really important thing to do with green stuff as an exercise is rolling off different size tubes. The reason that you want to have different size tubes is if you're making, let's say, purity seals or feathers or anything that you want equal in size for, let's say, a squad, by rolling out the tube here, you don't actually have to measure it that precisely, and you can just eyeball sections and then just mark it off like so. Now, rolling out a tube is one of the more important things to know, aside from the other shapes, which we'll discuss later on. When you roll out a tube of green stuff, you basically start off with one finger, and you want it to be nice and even all the way across. So here I've started off with one finger. Once it goes beyond my one finger and it starts divoting in and tapering, you go ahead and you can use two fingers. And basically what I'm doing is as I'm rolling and applying pressure, I'm also expanding it out like so. So I'm rolling it, applying pressure, but also I'm expanding my fingers out so that it also pulls the green stuff out like so. And then once it goes beyond your two fingers, if you want to, you can either cut it or you can do three fingers. Basically, the middle finger will stabilize it, and then the other two fingers on either side will pull it out. So what happens is you'll have a tube of green stuff that's nice and even all the way across. Now here, let me see, I'm almost... That's pretty good for this exercise. So here I'm going to have this really large chain. This chain here, this length here, which is going to be the chain, is slightly smaller and medium in size. And this is actually even thinner than that. So we have three different sizes of chain possibilities here. We have the thinner one here, we have a medium-sized one here, and then we have a thicker one here. What you want to do is, because you want to stick to the surface, you don't want any moisture underneath it. Here behind my sculpting palette, I have my sponge with the water inside of it. As you know, you can use a blister pack with just a little piece of sponge. Generally what happens is the amount of water that leaches up will be the amount of water you'll need for your sculpting tool. And as you know, anytime your sculpting tool touches the green stuff, you'll want to have some lubrication to it. So I'm just gently going to use my finger, which is a good sculpting tool, to go in and just press this down, these tubes down, so that it will stick to my surface. If you notice, I'm not using any liquid or lubrication to do this. So basically what I've done is I've started my leveling process of leveling my green stuff down just with my finger here and making sure that there's no moisture and that it'll stick to the surface. Now for the tools we'll be using, you can get these tools on my website at www.joeorteza.com. We're going to be using this tool here, which is a smaller version of the wax sculpting tool number 5. Which is a halberd end and then a rounded spade end. We'll also be using, depending on the size of your chain lengths, the ball stylus in varying sizes, which comes in the set as well. And also we're going to be using the Chisel clay shaper. And from here, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the chisel point here of the clay shaper, and I'm gently just going to go in and level off my tubes. You don't want them completely flattened out. You want to have some depth to them still. And in the tool set too, there's 3 different sizes of tweezers that we're going to be using for this exercise. We're going to have a smaller set of tweezers for the superfine here, although with this it's fairly large, but for the tutorial it's better seen when it's actually this big. But this will be the smaller of the chains, this will be the medium-sized chain, and this will be the larger chain. And I'll be doing the majority of the demonstration on this larger one just because it's a lot easier to see. So I'm going to lubricate my finger here. I'm going to use my pinky and gently just glide it across so it's nice and level all the way across. Now when you level something off, you don't want to get the sculpting tool and make little marks like this. If you do that, what will happen is it'll create divots along the surface that you want perfectly flush and straight. So instead, lubricate your sculpting tool and glide it all the way across, using the same amount of pressure all the way across in one fell swoop motion. So now our tubes are no longer rounded. And they have some thickness to them still, and they're flattened out. So here, if you want them straightened out, you can just get this tool, or one of the straighter tools like the Games Workshop like tool that we have in the set as well, just to push the sides in. So it's nice and level. Now from here, we'll also be using a series of the tweezers. And the tweezers, this one's basically the larger one. This is the medium-sized one here. We're going to focus just on this tube here, the larger one here, and maybe just touch on the middle-sized one here. So we won't be doing the smaller one here. With the tweezers, they're good because even if you're making like details that you're going to pick off later on that are so small, I'm not saying you have fat fingers, but it's really difficult to pick that up with your hand and then apply it to your model after you've applied glue to it without it sticking to your hand. So then if you do that way, you'll have a 50-50 chance of whether or not the little detail will stick to your model versus it sticking to your hand. But with the tweezers, they're small enough so you can pick it off, get your glue or your toothpick, apply it to the bottom, and then glue it onto your miniature. And a lot of miniatures now, some of the details are just so small, I don't know how people glue their models together without the use of tweezers. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to focus just on the larger link here. And what I have here is I have my larger tweezers. But before I do that, I want to cut off the ends like so. And the reason I want to cut off the end is because this is the starting point for where your chain is going to be. So I've cut off the ends here, and you can do the same to the other side. And then the cool thing about this is if you're going to glue this onto a model later on, you can have it straight like this, or you can have it at a curve. But depending if your chain is really thin and really small, you can actually create curves with it when you glue it onto your surface. So I'm just going to go back in and level this off just a little bit more. So you can see it has some thickness to it and it's not completely flat. So I'm just going to get my larger tweezers here. Even with the tweezers, I'm going to stick it in the water, as you can see in the background there. And I'm going to make sure that the water doesn't leach underneath it. And what you're going to do is you're going to tweeze, but you're not going to tweeze it all the way through. You don't want to squeeze it completely through. You're going to tweeze it just a little bit, and as you tweeze it, you're going to do a second step, which is pulling it up. What will happen is as you tweeze it gently and pulling it up, you'll create the center link. If you squeeze it all the way through so it shuts, what's going to happen is you're going to destroy your center link on the get-go. So here, I'm going to gently just tweeze and pull up. tweeze, and then pull it up. Tweeze, and then pull it up. And then what you're going to do is you're basically going to create that all the way through here. So I'm just going to go and do a few more all the way through to about there. So as you tweeze together and pull it up, what will happen is not only will it go in as you tweeze, and then as you pull up, it'll also create this. So you see how it comes up like that? So tweezing it will create that shape, and pulling it up will create that shape. So I'm going to use the medium-sized tweezers just to do these here. Now what will happen is also if your tweezer is too small for the link, it'll actually show you, because what will happen is your center link will create this, will get this cleft in it. So these tweezers here, it's important to use the right tweezer for the right size link. So if you notice here, there's no cleft in here. What will happen is if your tweezer is too small, as you press into it, you'll have a line down the center. But we don't have that because I use the appropriate size tweezer for the lengths. So here, if you want, you can expand it out. This is for the medium-sized chain link. Here I'm just pulling it, I'm tweezing it together and pulling it up, but I'm also expanding it a little bit more. So tweeze it together. I'm not squeezing it all the way through or else you'll lose the center link. And then by pulling up, if you notice here, by pulling it up, it'll make it come up like so. Now from here, you're going to decide what size burnishing end you'll be using. Basically what you want is you want the hole that you create in the center here to be actually a little bit wider than that center link. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off here at the top, and I'm going to make, I've lubricated this ball stylus, and I'm going to make a hole. You don't have to go all the way through to the surface. Lubricate it a little bit more. And I've created these holes. So you see here, I'm going to make the holes a little bit bigger because the links are actually wider. So here I have my holes, and here is the center link. So if you look from the side view here, what we're going to focus on is creating the illusion that this center link goes into each of these holes. Okay? So what we have here is our medium-sized, we have our larger sized chain here. The next thing we're going to do is you can use either an X-Acto blade, which is not in the set because I'm assuming that everyone has one, or you can use the smaller Wax 5 that we have in the tool set here. And what you're going to do is basically to further give the illusion that this center link goes into each of these holes, we're going to make a mark. So here, I'm going to make a mark here, and I'm just going to do one side at a time, because it's actually faster than if I try to do all four sides of this. Now when I say four sides, what I want you to think about is that this center link here has four corners. 1, 2, and then the bottom 1, 3, 4. Okay? So here I've just made a small mark coming all the way down. And then I'm going to slightly turn it so I can do the other side here, just doing the top. Then And this is another reason you want the opening to be larger than the center link, is because you'll want to it's actually easier to give that illusion that it'll go in. So here we've done one side. And if you notice, what we've done is we've created the illusion that this section goes into the center opening hole there. And then we did that basically by just making these little marks on either side. So now I'm going to turn it so I can do the other side. So I'm lubricating the small wax 5 tool here, and I'm going to make a little mark now along one side. And then I'm going to slightly turn it and then do the other side. Like so. So now from here, what you can do is this. What happens is when you make the little hole in the middle using your ball stylus, is because green stuff shifts, and I keep repeating myself, but it's important to know these little details that it does shift. As you push in, what will happen is your sides will round off like so. So as you push in, what will happen is it'll round off your chains. So here, if you wanted this chain link to be perfectly square instead of rounded, what you would do is at the end, once you've done this step here, you go in and then just push the sides in. So I'm going to lubricate this sculpting tool and gently just let me remove the excess water and push these sides in so that it squares off your chains. Another thing to note too is by making the little hole openings, the center link will round off like this. So if you're making square links, you'll also want to go back in and gently using your the chisel shaper, go in and gently just level off the top. So I'm not flattening it out completely, I'm just going to level it off so that my center links are more squared off, like so. And then so here, if you can see, what we have is the illusion that each of these center links goes into each of these openings. And again, we did that by going in and making 4 marks on either side of this center link. So here on the medium size one, I'm going to go in, and again, you're just going to go down one side, like so. And by making this small mark, you're just going to give the illusion that this center link goes into the holes. And then, as we did before in the larger one, do the other side. Then you flip it around, and then you repeat the same process. So you're going to go in and then just do one side again. So this is the 3rd corner, and then the 4th corner of the center link. Like so. Now with this, again, to lose that doughy look, once it's completely cured and before you remove it, you can go ahead and get your X-Acto blade and basically scrape the top of this off and then scrape the sides as well. So when you're scraping, as you know, because I'm sure a lot of you have actually scraped your models using an X-Acto blade to remove the flash. If you have your X-Acto blade at any angle, it's basically cutting. So you want it straight up and down, and then just gently glide it across the surface, and what'll happen is you'll lose that doughy look to it. So basically, this is the chain link here. We have the top view, and then we have the side view like so. So you see how the center link goes into the hole openings just by making those small few marks. All right, good luck. Thank you for watching.